Hello, my friend. Welcome to the show. That is the Butterfly Effect podcast. I'm your host, Jack, and of course, I'm here with Liam.
Hello.
And today, we're going to be discussing the Quarry Chapter 9, named The Matriarch. Now, I'll tell you what, before we do get going, I'm going to raise something that I completely forgot to mention in the last one, but I don't know if you know this, mate, but depending on your choices and the way your game plays out, chapter titles can actually change in certain instances as well.
Yeah, I know. I had no idea that was a thing because I know Until Dawn did that, but now I've just literally thought it was one track for Quarry.
So yeah, I know like for chapter 10 it can be called Bricks and Mortar, it can be called Final Girl. I'm pretty sure there's a difference for chapter 8 as well, which my memory is not telling me what it is, but yeah, I thought I'd put that in as like a nice detailer for the game. But yeah, so let's get into the main event, shall we? So we start off as Dylan, and he's walking with Caitlin. Obviously they've agreed to go to the scrapyard to try and get a working vehicle, and it's just a dialogue section, isn't it? And I know in my playthrough, Dylan, he was quite depressed about the fact that he's not got his hand anymore, and he was saying, "Oh, people are going to treat me differently." And Caitlin tries to lighten the mood by saying, "Oh, you could be called Hooky McHookface," and that sort of thing. And ultimately goes on to Ryan, I think, in terms of like the conversation, where I suppose they both have a heart to heart, didn't they, mate? Where they're saying maybe we've missed our shot with him.
Yeah, it's kind of like the little rejection club, isn't it? And they say, "Oh, I guess he's interested in blonde heroes with eye patches and stuff." Whether you agree with that or not, I don't know. It's one of those ones where it's subjective with who you ship. I wasn't the greatest fan of it. Like I voiced it in the last episode. I would have maybe have had Caitlin go with Ryan and maybe made this section Ryan and Dylan. But yeah, it is what it is. We're left with the pity party.
Yeah, and you know what as well, because I've done like another playthrough now, made different choices. I don't know what choices necessarily contribute to this, but they can actually like full on bitch about Ryan here. So it's not just about them saying, "Oh, we've missed our chance," but they sort of lay into him quite a bit. I'm trying to remember the things they say, but it was just interesting. Like it was a complete surprise to me as to how like it obviously can go that way, and they sort of both look at the situation, think, you know what, yeah, we can do better than him. Let's just crack on with the evening.
Yeah, I think one frustration I have is that I almost get it for Dylan's sake because he was into Ryan. It's clear they have a lot of scenes together. He missed out, but I almost feel like Caitlin, and I keep saying this, I just didn't think she needed to be watered down by this love story or rejection story. I think like she's quite cool the way she is. I just wish maybe she was just like a badass solo final girl who just had her own thing going on, and I just thought it was a bit of a wasted thing really to just lump her into that storyline. I just don't think she needed it personally.
Yeah, and you know what as well, talked about Kate, it's not like her being part of this little love triangle did anything more to her character for me. Like, my opinion is that obviously she's underused in this game anyway, but even if she didn't have this whole love triangle angle, I don't think it would have changed my view at all. I feel like it would have been pretty much the same had she not been interested in Ryan. So yeah, it's a bit of a weird one, but nonetheless they decide to go on into the scrapyard, and we go over to Hackett House, where we're then playing as Laura, and she's getting dragged by the hair by Constance. And yeah, mate, I don't know if you want to take this bit on.
Coolest death in a Supermassive game ever. Maybe not coolest death, but the goriest for sure. and I fucking loved it. I was quite gutted that I couldn't use Ghoulfest mode, because that was something that was only for movie mode. But I don't know if I needed it for this scene, or I wonder what happens if you turn Ghoulfest mode on for this scene, because it's incredible. You're having the tussle, and obviously I'm scared for Laura's life. She's my favourite character. So I was scared I'd probably live what you probably felt when Abby went. So I was just there spamming that W button on my keyboard for my life, like I've never spammed it. I nearly broke my goddamn keyboard, that I nearly had to buy a new one. And yeah, won it, and she had half a face. So yeah, but I had quite mixed emotions about it. I don't know if you want to talk about the death before I talk about the aftermath of it first, though, mate.
Yeah, definitely the coolest death, completely by surprise. Do I feel like that Constance could have been in it a bit longer? Yes, I do. You know, what more she could have done within the story, I don't know. She wouldn't have gone out with them to hunt, so mixed feelings, I guess.
Yeah, I know there is a lot of variety with her. For example, I found a premonition with a tarot card that had her getting thrown against a wall by a wolf. And I have seen the bonus scene that I showed you where Laura can hum, and then Constance shoots Laura in the face, and it's just like, I don't even know how you find that, to be honest. But yeah, I do agree. It would have been nice to have seen more of Constance. I had mixed emotions when this happened, when this whole death scene happened, because I was so relieved that Laura was alive. But I was also very much like, you know how we've had this attitude that we're siding with the Hacketts and we don't want to be fighting them. And I was just waiting for that moment where it's you and the Hacketts against the wolves. Something happens where you pair together and they're on your side. But then Laura goes and shoots the mum's face off. And I also was thinking to myself, like, well, we've burnt that bridge, because Jedediah says something along the lines of, Travis, you're not protecting them anymore, and immediately starts to try and shoot you, and Bobby stabs Ryan in the side. And it's like, okay, yeah, we have completely burnt this bridge. These guys are enemies. I don't even care if we're the ones in the wrong shoes here. We have to get out of here.
Yeah, you know what? It's funny that this game does this. There's genuine moments of horror or shock are immediately followed up with humour, and I don't know if they intended to do this, but it just made me laugh how she's had half her face shot off, and then Jedediah goes up to her body and starts trying to do CPR.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, mate, you're in denial. You've just seen half her face get shot off, and you're there come on, come back, sort of thing. Yeah, it's a good scene. It does make me think as well, because the way it plays out later, obviously Bobby stabbed Ryan, and presumably Bobby starts to go after Laura. Then Bobby ends up chasing Ryan later to kill him. So I was thinking, well, why didn't you just kill him when you had him in your arms with the knife? Why did you let him get away and then chase him?
Yeah, there are inconsistencies in that scene, isn't there? I mean, from this point, you do control Ryan, though, don't you? And you have the option to pull the knife or not pull the knife. What did you do there, mate?
I didn't pull out the knife because I was thinking, if you do, you're just gonna bleed out. So I was like, you know what? I'll keep it in, and hopefully something will help me out later down the line. Which, to be fair, it did. And speaking about this room in particular, I think we did different things here, mate. So I know what I did is I blocked the door. Not that it did anything. It did fuck all. The guy just burst it open. I swear at this point, blocking doors in this game literally comes to nothing, because it was the exact same with the werewolf in the treehouse with Emma earlier on in the game. But and yeah, Ryan then legs it out. But didn't you hide in this bit?
Yeah, I hid. I thought he doesn't know you're in the room, so I thought, yeah, if I block it, he's probably just going to break it down. It's his own house, you know? So I did think, yeah, you know what, I should hide. And you get the option of either hiding under the bed or hiding in the closet.
Right.
And yeah, I don't know why, I just instinctively chose to hide under the bed, which probably wouldn't be the nicest option for Ryan, considering what he finds under there earlier when you inspect the room. What I'm assuming is Bobby's room, by the way. Yeah, so Bobby shits in a bowl underneath his bed, which is lovely. Bobby does end up chasing you anyway when you sort of close the next door behind you anyway. And I just enjoyed the little bit of dialogue where he blocks the door afterwards, and then he says something along the lines of like, "Oh, you can't run away from me in my own house, you fucker." And then Ryan just turns around saying, "You're the fucker." I'm just like, "Oh, Ryan, you got him."
Oh, yeah. Oh, better comebacks, Ryan. Better comebacks. But yeah, no, that did make me laugh as well. But obviously, yeah, he then gets away a little bit, doesn't he? But we then do cross back to Laura, and again, we're immediately given with a choice whether to hide or to run. So, what did you pick, mate?
Yeah, I picked to run. And to be honest, it says hide or run, and yeah, I can't remember what happens, but I'm pretty sure it leads you to this kind of piano room, which I'll talk about more in a bit. How about you, mate? What did you pick?
Yeah, I picked the exact same run. There's obviously a couple of QTEs on the way, but like I mentioned with the block door, it seems to me that you know how in Until Dawn that you were almost rewarded for hiding. You know, I think
Yeah,
back to when you're with Jess, when you're with Sam. Even at the end, you don't just run to flick the light, do you? You've got to hide each time and slowly work your way out. In this game, it seems to be the opposite. Hiding doesn't seem to do anything, whether it's Abby going through the log, the werewolf seems to get you anyway. And same again here, like I don't know what hiding would do apart from maybe bring about another don't breathe sequence or something, and then ultimately lead to where we was going to go anyway.
yeah, especially because it's in their own house too. So yeah, I just explored this room really, mate. One thing I want to say while we are here and we are just kind of chilling in the Hackett house for a moment is that I really like the whole setting of the Hackett house. I feel one thing that Until Dawn trumps the Quarry on is the horror. We have to say that this is a horror game technically, and I'm just going to say it, the Quarry didn't scare me. At no point did I jump out my chair. Well, I did with Until Dawn. There were a few moments where I was a lot younger when I played it, but I played it in the dark, and the score and being on the snowy mountains with like the Wendigos and walking through the sanatorium, there were scenes that did have me on edge that would make me jump. I
Yeah.
never felt that with Quarry. I don't know if that's because I'm older and I'm a lot more accustomed to playing horror games. But I will say that this Hackett house is the one thing that it wasn't scary, but it just was a little unsettling being in like the villain's home where they were walking around and you could hear like their footsteps above you with floors creaking, and you would have these like trophy skulls on the wall. And it reminded me very much of the Spencer Mansion from Resident Evil. You had like the windows that looked like dogs could jump through at any moment, and you had all the old furniture, and then there was just this really creepy piano at the centerpiece of this room. So yeah, I just wanted to give a little hats off to the designers for just making this Hackett house very different from everything we've seen from like the fun summer camp and the forests and the island. And then we're given this really creepy old style building to set, one of the penultimate chapter in, which yeah, I just really enjoyed.
No, I've got to say I do agree. Like, I think that if you're talking about the raw location, I'd probably give it to the Quarry more than Until Dawn because of the range of places there are. You've got the house, the scrapyard, the lodges. I think Until Dawn excels in setting a mood, and I think it achieves that by the blizzard, the snow, horror music. It doesn't really give you moments of levity, whereas I think this game does, isn't it? I think this game, it's horror by title, but I think it's just more accessible to a wider audience.
Agreed.
So I do like the house. I think for me though, it was more the fact that I think the pace just picked up a little bit. You've got characters on the run. As soon as you become Laura, it says run or hide, and there's no context. You're thinking, well, why am I hiding? So I actually ended up just picking run because I was like, if I hide and then someone comes in, it could be end game for Laura.
Yeah.
So yeah, obviously you come to this piano room. As tempted as I was to hit something, I didn't. Did you hit any of the keys, mate?
I didn't. I'm really intrigued to see what happens. It just seemed dumb. It's like you're trying to get away from the Hackets, and the last thing I would do is give away my position by playing like Boulevard of Broken Dreams on the piano. I'm not going to do that.
Travis! You have this scene play out with Laura and Jedediah, and it sort of took me by surprise. Like when he burst open the door and he said, like, "Oh, no more games," and you expect it to be like a full-on dialogue scene, and I think she goes to say to him, "Yeah, bring it on" or something, and then he just straight up shoots her, and I was like, "Oh crap, yeah, no, he does mean business." Of course, a fight scene plays out, and I suppose this is perhaps another criticism of like the QTEs being too easy, because at no point did I feel any sense of dread in this situation. A lot of the times you're hitting the same direction on the analog anyway, so it's not like you have to mix it up or add an extra button or something like that. But as a result, I won the fight with Jedediah, and it then come up with a choice when he's on the floor to either run or attack. Now, I chose to run. I have seen what plays out if you attack him as well. So before, I go into that, what did you do, mate?
I also chose to run. I just thought here, like, I've just killed this man's wife. I still don't have any ill blood for the Hackets. I've just, basically shot this guy's wife's face off. I want to get out the Hackett house and leave them be, or kill Chris and leave, or whatever it is. But I've got no reason to kill this man, so I just thought I'm not going to attack him. Like, he's brittle anyway. I'm surprised he didn't die or get a hip replacement as he fell over earlier anyway.
Yeah, so obviously I run as well, but I think if you do attack him, then because obviously Laura's a werewolf, isn't she, or she's about to become one, but she's got like super strength at this point, and you can actually kill Jedediah here. I think you can like, lift him up by the neck and then like snap his neck or whatever and throw him to the floor. And makes me laugh how, like, suppose if you do, because I have seen this play out, Travis then comes in, and regardless whether Laura didn't shoot him in the cell, he's just seen this woman kill his mum and his dad. He goes, "Wait!" He's just holding a gun, and he just waits for her to run at him to knock the gun out of his hand. Lets her run past him, and then he just throws his arms up. You're like, "Oh, damn it, she got away." I'm like, come on, man. Like, later on, you're not so hesitant to kill her. Like, if I'm nitpicking, which of course you should expect from me by now, he would have said something or done something more dramatic if he would just seen what he had seen.
Yeah, of course. I mean, because obviously if you run, you darken the room by hitting the switch, right?
Yeah.
And then, because, like, Travis came in for me, and I guess it made sense for me, and I was really rewarded, because obviously I was complying with Travis the whole time. I was nice. I even apologized to him as I left the cell, kind of thing. And it was nice to sort of see, okay, I imagine this would have played really badly if I hadn't done that. So I was pretty delighted by that. But one thing I wanted to kind of talk about, mate, before we do get back to Ryan, who's, having an ordeal with Bobby at the moment, is when Laura hits the switch, it obviously affects what goes on in the basement with the electric cage. Now, you've watched the last episode. For context, guys, I managed to free Jacob, and I left Nick in the cage there. But how did it play out for you? Because I imagine we would have had very different moments there, mate.
We did indeed, because obviously I failed the little puzzle with the breakers, and it did almost play out as I expected. I sort of sensed that in that moment I was like, "Oh, Jacob's had it," but essentially all the power goes off, which means that all the doors of the cage is swung open, and then the werewolf just sort of looks across and sees Jacob sitting there, and then that's it. He's dinner. So it would be my second death at this point, and I was like, oh well, it was obviously costly that I didn't let him get out from that puzzle.
Do you see it in all its glory as well? Just Wolf Nick jump across and just tear into Jacob then?
I think you see him, yeah, jump on top of him and Jacob screaming, and then like the camera slowly starts to pan away while the wolf is on top of him, and that's when it come up with like the little pause thing saying "Death Rewind." So
Yeah.
it's not too graphic if I remember rightly.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's gutting though. Go down to 6 like that. So Abby and Jacob down for you at this point in the game. But yeah, happy to go over to Ryan.
Yeah, of course. So obviously Ryan's still on the run from Bobby, and he goes into this room where there's this hole in the wall, and you have a couple of QTEs, and then a "Don't Breathe" segment come up. And I think this was a moment in my first playthrough when I got the achievement where you've got to do like 5 "Don't Breathes," or it was something like that anyway. But yeah, past that, and then it's almost as if like you might as well have failed it, because Bobby like just randomly catches up to you anyway. Ryan's on the floor. Of course, he's still got the knife in him, and I mean, yeah, I genuinely feared for Ryan at this point. Obviously, I'm very conscious it's chapter 9, and I'm thinking characters are going to start dropping like flies. I've just seen Jacob die. So I didn't hesitate. I took the knife out and I stabbed Bobby, mate. So how did all of that play out for your good self?
I did not choose to stab him. I'm still thinking there, like, we're the villains. We've just murdered your family. I'm not gonna kill you. So I was very much like, you know what, nah, like, I think I've played a few of these Supermassive games to, enough to know that, yeah, like, they are coming right after us, and maybe attack is the best form of defense, but I was sort of in the back of my mind thinking, yeah, you know what, like, I'm not gonna stab Bobby here. And obviously more funny dialogue, but he's just there like, hey, you stole my knife, and just pulls it out of you, and it's like, no, you gave it to me. You literally stabbed me in the side, Bobby.
Oh, so actually, if you didn't stab him then you wouldn't have heard another bit of funny dialogue from Bobby. So when you stab him, he literally says it in the most dry way. He's like, "Ow, that really hurts." And then he starts wandering off, and he goes, "Dad."
Oh yeah, because for me, he runs away because Laura jumps down to save you.
Yeah.
And then he looks at you, like Laura, and he's like, "Hey, you've been bit, Dad," and just like runs off. So either way, he gets like a really sort of corny, like kind of childlike running to his parents or whatever. Yeah. And you can kind of get the impression that, Bobby is like, obviously he's not the brightest son, and he's one that clearly Jedediah looks after, because even when Constance died, Jedediah singled Bobby out, like, she's not here anymore, Bobby, rather than saying it to Travis, who's literally right in the room. So they're definitely almost, you can tell that there is a bit of favoritism that goes on with these Hackett's here. You can tell that they almost prefer Bobby over Travis.
That's it. So yeah, again, like I said before, potentially a real moment of drama. Immediately there's some levity. So yeah, no, I did enjoy that bit, but of course it then moves to Laura and Ryan, and you have a pretty major choice here. And I suppose for me, before I do touch on that choice, it's really at this point when, I know we've talked before about Laura, Ryan, potentially shipping. For me, obviously not in a romantic way, but in terms of just their overall chemistry, I think it's perhaps this scene where it really does peak for me and them. What am I chatting? For Ryan and Laura, and I think it's perhaps to do with that. It's been fairly confrontational. He's been backing Chris Hackett, she's been not, and I think it's come to the point where Ryan's realising where, in order to save his own skin, he has to like go along with the whole bite. At least that's how I was thinking it when I was playing, and as a result, I accepted the bite. But I think as well, I did see that there was like a Lover's Tarot card, so I was almost half expecting this to happen. I think in the previous chapter, the Lover's Tarot card, it literally has a picture of someone being bit by someone else, and the caption says that it can actually save someone's life by tasting their blood. So I was like, okay, so this is potentially coming. But interesting as well that it's called The Lovers, and obviously they're the two characters that this scene plays out for. So first of all, How did that play for you, mate? And second of all, how does the whole lovers thing tie in with your feelings towards, Ryan and Laura's chemistry?
Yeah, of course. So, I accepted the bite. I was like, you know what? I don't think the Hacketts are gonna give us access to their meds at any point here. So I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm gonna accept it. Why not? It might pump a bit of kind of, what's the word? It might make Ryan's character a bit more interesting. So I was like, yeah, let's make him a wolf. So I just was like, yeah, I'm all for it, like it just seems like the right way to go. We know that like becoming a wolf just heals your wounds like that. As for the whole lovers thing, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, maybe I would ship them more, but my thing is I just ship Laura and Max too much. You see their chemistry in the prologue, and then again in chapter 7 when they're in the cells and, Max didn't quite make it to college, but Laura's empathetic with him. I just really like their dialogue, and I just really think they're a good match, like they go well together. And I just feel like, Ryan had potentially something with Dylan, maybe not, but then he just gets lumped into with Laura, and I almost feel like you've got two potential ships, or one that actually is a ship though, and it's almost like you're pissing on them to kind of lump these two together. So yeah, I guess I'm not the biggest fan of the ship, but I have seen people that are. So it is one of those ones where it's just, it always will be subjective, but for my sake personally, it's a no-go.
Yeah, I've got to say I do agree. Like, I do ship Laura and Max, mostly obviously like in a romantic sense. I don't ship Laura and Ryan, but I think for me it's just their chemistry. But I do find it interesting like how like the Lover's Tarot was used. I was thinking, is that because there is just a Lover's Tarot and they just sort of made it for the game, is it for being convenient for them two characters? But it
is one of those ones though, mate, where like every character has to be interested in someone. At least with Until Dawn we had like Josh and Sam who were potentially solo and just doing their thing, But this one, even like Caitlin, who doesn't need to be in a love triangle, Supermassive Games are like, oh yeah, let's lump them with someone.
Yeah, so yeah, of course, obviously in our playthrough, he accepts the bite, so he's not going to bleed out and die. And they then hear a noise, so they both shuffle away at the so that they avoid getting caught, and that's where we leave it at that. But we then come back to Dylan and Caitlin at the scrapyard, and obviously they're still on their hunt for a working car. And you were saying before, mate, about how this game didn't make you jump.
Yeah.
I'd be lying if I said it didn't as well. It only made me jump once, and it was actually in this bit. And it was them damn motion sensor lights where you're literally walking through. And because I'm so used to the jump scares happening in like a cutscene, it genuinely took me by surprise when, as I was walking as Dylan, the motion light came on. And because I had my headphones on, it just like really shit me up.
Oh yeah, no, I can imagine that. Maybe I just didn't have it loud enough. But yeah, like the I really like this junkyard, like the score when they get there and the use of the lights, especially towards the end of the scene when we get to the conclusion bit. I really like how they use these sensor lights. from a horror perspective.
Yeah.
It was done really geniusly.
No, yeah, I do. And obviously, like, there's the bit beforehand, isn't there, where Dylan gets to sort of show off his funny side again, albeit unintentionally, where he reveals that he has a nickname called the Grabber, and because of the kids or something when he's at the arcade, and Caitlin's just like, oh god, no, that sounds absolutely terrible. And he's like, oh
Yeah.
noted. That made me laugh. But then, like, as I was saying in the Quarry Oscars video, like, she has the gun, and you even get a choice, don't you? It's like you could either ask for the gun, or like you can encourage her to watch your back. But you can just see it in his speech, and you can see it in his facial expressions that he really wants that gun. He doesn't really trust anybody else to cover his back. But I know in my playthrough, he reluctantly went up to the crane anyway. Like you say, the music in this bit's great. I mean, I don't know if it's heavy metal music. I'm not sure. Can't quite remember. I don't really listen to that music. But what I think is beautifully done in this game is that music fits the tone with what you're watching. It just really added like pace and drama to the whole sequence with like the QTEs. Obviously, you're lifting the car up and Caitlin's in there. And I think you get a choice, don't you? It's like, you slam the car or do you sound the horn? Now, I sounded the horn because I thought that the noise would scare it off. But what did you do?
Yeah, I slammed the car and instantly regretted picking that because I was like, yeah, obviously, like the wolf, like they hate sound. We've determined this, because they used it in the Radio Shack to deter the wolf from, going near them.
Yeah.
So I slammed the car and I'm thinking, what am I doing? Caitlin's inside there. And indeed, she did fall from the car. And I was like, right, I've killed her. Luckily, though, she landed on some tyres. And, obviously, the wolf did approach her while she was kind of lying on her back. So it wasn't the best thing, but I genuinely thought I could have killed Caitlin there. Luckily, I didn't.
Yeah, it's funny because it plays out the same no matter what in a way. Like, even if you sound the horn, she opens the car door and then jumps onto the tyres, which I thought personally was really dumb. But yeah, so it's a shame that it plays out the same way, because I think they really could have tested you there, because obviously remembering that the sound was very useful earlier on, I thought that could have been a good point. But for me, the werewolf climbs up the crane and it then sort of goes to attack Dylan. And what is it that he's got? He's got something. He's got some sort of tool anyway, and he uses it to deter it, I think. And it then falls down. It's about to get Caitlin, and then obviously he can then drop car. Which, by the way, I do wish that was a kill. That would have been a really good kill.
I was, and obviously, don't get me wrong, one of the best scenes in the game, like we mentioned, when it's all breezy and you get in the car down, and when Dylan notices the lights turning on and down the pathway, I thought that was so powerful. Like this wolf getting closer to you. Two criticisms I have for this whole scene. One was the initial build-up, and I think this isn't the only time this has happened. I was speaking about my brother with it the other day, but often the Quarry throws these giant spaces to explore, and there'll be like no clues or just one measly clue in a giant location. So really giant space, and I was literally scouring for every car, every little alleyway, for every little tunnel, trying to find clues, and either I missed them or there was just none. Like the only ones I really found were like the Judgment Tarot and then like the scrapyard note back at the previous bit. So I just felt like I wasted a lot of time just wandering around maybe. But the second criticism I'd have is, so this is the first time we see the wolf Silas. This is what the Wikia page does confirm. At the time, I thought it was maybe a generic other wolf. And as I was telling you that one time, I was like, well, it can't be any of the Hackett's, because they're either at the Hackett house or they're potentially dead at this point, or, they're going off and they're confronting a different person. So I thought this was maybe one of the abandoned hikers that had become a wolf. That was like my early theory.
Yeah.
But the Wikia does confirm this is in fact Silas. Now, as we'll see, Silas has gone on to be described as a big white wolf. Now, I just wish they made Silas a bit more distinct. He's not really a white wolf. He's not really that much bigger than the other wolves. I just wish, like, this scene would have really have just told us, like, oh my god, like, that's Silas, or this wolf's different from the others because it's got, like, an iconic scar on its eye, or it's, like, actual, like, thick white. So initially I had to read about this to learn it was Silas, so this kind of went over my head a little bit, and maybe that's me being dumb, but I do think the game could have told me that this was Silas a little better. So yeah, I don't know if you agree there with my 2 points. One about Silas, the other being about like the giant location with like a lack of clues, leading you on wild goose chases for quite long periods of time, mate.
Yeah, no, I generally couldn't have put it better, mate. I do agree with both of them points. I do think ultimately that my total playthrough through prologue to chapter 10 was about 10.5 hours. I did actually think afterwards, because of what you just said, you know, like the exploring for clues and the lost time, how much time could have been lost from doing that. I suppose it makes life easier when you go back through it again, because you know to go straight to the place rather than wandering around all these various things. But same with Silas as well. You know, this is supposed to be like the Don Wolf, you know, the original. It doesn't seem separate. Maybe, like, I don't know, in the back of my mind I was thinking maybe this is Caleb or something, but then I don't know. You know, if Wiki says it's Silas, then I'll take it as Silas. But yeah, they could have done a little bit more there, to be honest.
Yeah, but regardless, still a really cool scene. I really like the metal, and yeah, it was a really cool potential kill from Dylan. I really liked his snarky dialogues afterwards. Like, I wonder who they'll get to play me. Like you say, further cementing him as the comedic outlet here. But yeah, I'm happy to move on to Emma, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'll tell you what, I'm going to say it now because I might forget saying this in chapter 10, but Emma had such a vanilla playthrough for me, and I don't think that Emma's designed, in speech marks, to have that sort of playthrough, because in my playthrough she didn't get infected, therefore she's been sat in the car, she then just goes down in the basement, and what does she find down there? She finds the Hierophant tarot card, she finds the collar, the Ian collar or something like that again. I think she also finds silver shells. And then, you know what, at this point, because as Dylan earlier on in the game, I chose to go down there, I loosened the ladder. It did cross my mind, I was thinking, oh god, like maybe she starts to climb up the ladder and then she just falls back and hits her head and dies. Like a really boring death, but nonetheless, like a choice that earlier could have affected it. No, she just goes up the ladder and then she's into Chris's office. And I was like, oh, that was easy, sort of thing. So, similar, mate?
Yeah, no extra points. Everything you found, the tarot, the silver shells, and that ladder rung, which I believe comes into effect if you have Abby in your gameplay, which obviously we killed her off at the pool house, so we never would have got that. Yeah, and I totally agree with your point about Emma. It's a point I'm going to kind of further elaborate on in the next and final chapter. But a big theme about this game will be that you have to kind of infect people, really, to get the fun playthrough. The only people that really got infected for me were, you know, like Nick, you know, no one that's non-canon, really, other than Ryan for like a split second. So I got a very dull playthrough in my opinion, but I'll further elaborate on that. But I do agree that it massively affects Emma. She, you know, like you say, she just kind of goes into this basement, picks up some silver shells, and then we won't see her for, you know, other than a little tiny bit in chapter 10. So kind of disappointing, because especially considering she got like a really badass chapter 4 involving a zip wire. You know, she was like the Emily of chapter 8 and Until Dawn, and then we had Emma doing the zip wire scene, and you just would have liked a bit more really from Emma. And it's sad because it's like, we know some diehard Emma fans. I'm sure they would have loved to have seen her get like a really iconic scene afterwards.
It is true. It is almost as if, like, whether it's chapter 4 or chapter 6, the game wants you to get her infected, because, to be fair, if she does get infected in chapter 4, then you have the whole sequence with her being the wolf in the car, and then she could potentially kill Abby. You've got to play as Caitlin to shoot her, and it's just a lot of fun. But obviously we didn't have that because we reeled in the sort of zip wire thing twice instead of once, and then speeding up, and we didn't get her infected back at the treehouse. So it does sort of suck, and I suppose it's something that we can come back in a future video as well.
I don't think it helps as well by the fact that the QTEs were too easy in this game, and I know you could bump them up, and I maybe that's my doing for leaving them to default. Like I don't think I failed one QTE ever in the Quarry. Maybe one that was like a minor one that didn't really kill anyone off. But it just meant that maybe you're supposed to fail a little bit in a few areas, and those failures actually help you get like a decent storyline, and I just never had that. So yeah, maybe just one of those hindsight things where, I don't know, I'm kind of a little angry that maybe the game shouldn't be written that way. Maybe, there should be, if you have a really good playthrough for QTEs, the branch should kind of reward you for that, maybe. But I don't know, I'll elaborate that in the final chapter.
No, agreed, mate, agreed. But of course, after this, we come to almost the main crescendo of the game, I suppose. The whole thing, the whole plot so far, mostly driven by Laura, is to go and kill Chris Hackett, the werewolf. And of course, you go into the attic and you see him. You then fall through the floor, and there's a massive fight that's breaking out. And to make things worse, this is the moment that Laura then becomes a werewolf, and Travis is coming in. In my playthrough, Chris is currently fighting Bobby, who does actually end up dying here because I stabbed him earlier, and he's a little bit injured, obviously. And I think Jedediah also dies here as well. But to come back to the point, obviously it's all been leading to kill Chris Hackett, and it's just simply shooting him with the shotgun. Before we go into further details, mate, did you find this underwhelming at all?
Yeah, I guess so. I think, like, firstly, from the fact that we have David Arquette in this game, who is quite a big actor, and we were expecting to see a lot more from him, especially you, who thought he would, be like the best actor of the game, when we did on, Oscars, for example.
Yeah.
So I kind of was expecting more from Chris, like maybe like Ryan wins Laura over and there's a transformation at the end, and I don't even know if that, is an option, not even from like a moral point of view, or Laura trying to, seek that anyway. But yeah, the whole kind of thing, the way it leads here. I mean, first of all, when you go and see Chris at the back, it's so dark that when you stumble across him, and then it's really flawed by the fact he easily breaks out the chains anyway, which I thought was just a little bit weird. Fun fact as well, my brother played it and he had this brightness really high, and you can just sort of see Chris in the background of the attic chilling.
Oh yeah.
And you can just think, well, I don't really want to walk over there, but you have to, like, to progress the scene. But yeah, really interesting, mate, that your Bobby and Jedediah died there for you, because for me, obviously I never stabbed Bobby, so he gets thrown against the wall and he's knocked out, but Bobby does survive in my game. And Jedediah kind of just walks out of the room, like he just doesn't give a shit, like he's like, my family are dying, and he just has his back turned and he just leaves the room. It's so weird.
Right.
But yeah, like, the whole scene, though, underwhelming. Yeah, potentially so. Like I say, David Arquette, like, you don't see him that much, and it's kind of just sprung on you really out of nowhere. And yeah, in terms of just like a boss battle, it's like, do you wish to pull the trigger, yes or no? It's a bit like, oh, really? Is that what I'm getting? And funny enough, this isn't the only time we're going to get this kind of conclusion either, mate. What happened for your one?
Oh, blimey, let me explain. So I was worried that I was somehow victim to a glitch, but I think I've now worked out what's gone on. So obviously, as you then fall in, Bobby's dead, Jedediah's dead, and you've got the shotgun as Ryan. And I think what took me by surprise was just how simple it was. The gun was already aimed at the werewolf. And for a split second, I thought, am I aiming at Laura there? Am I supposed to turn and shoot at a different werewolf? So I did. I turned and saw Laura on top of Travis. I was like, no, that can't be. I then turned back to Chris Hackett. And the red bar was still going down. I swear to it, I hadn't missed it. But as I shot, and I think I've seen this in another gameplay, Chris had already leapt forward, like to run towards you. So as I shot, I think he leapt forward, so my shot went over his head. And then he then proceeded to just take the shotgun off me, which is, by the way, a really brutal death, like an honourable mention. He takes the shotgun and he just absolutely brutally whacks Ryan's face with it, completely caving one side of his face in. So I thought, oh brilliant, I've lost Ryan. And then, of course, because you don't kill Chris Hackett, Laura, stays as werewolf form. And then her and Travis mutually kill one another. He gets her with silver-backed mirror, and as he does so, she decapitates him just with one swoop of the arm. So, within very quick succession, I'd lost Jacob, Laura, and Ryan, and I was thinking, wow. Like, they're dropping like flies here in Chapter 9.
Mate, that's crazy. So Chris was the one man who walked up that room alive.
Indeed.
Well, for me, it's the opposite. He's the one man who died there. Everyone else came away unscathed. I mean, not necessarily. There is something I will explain. And for those that have seen my gameplay, I have explained this. But now, this is where a load of people aren't going to believe me when I say this. But hand on my heart, this is what happened. I'm playing the game and I'm just there looking at Chris. I'm like, yeah, you know what? He's looking at me. I don't want another Nick and Abby situation to happen. I'm going to pull the trigger. So as I'm going to do that, my game comes up with a pop-up. And as I hit it, I get that whole error message, like ding, because I can't hit because the thing's in the way. But I can see the bar in the bottom, you know, and I can see that the game's still running.
Yeah.
And then I see that like the wolf just jumps and kills Ryan in the background as I'm getting rid of this pop-up. And then as I'm there, it's like, oh yeah, Ryan's dead. And I kind of like pause the game and I just kind of paced around my room a little bit. Like, I don't know, that's like really unfair to me. Because I'm thinking like with Abby, I could accept that. That was my fault. I didn't shoot. I'll take that. But with this one, I genuinely wanted to, but a game pop-up got in the way because I had to update the game. So as the game was updating, which took about half an hour, I was kind of sat there thinking, like, what am I going to do in this half an hour? And I spoke to you about it, and I spoke to Anya as well. And she kind of just, you know, reassured me. She was like, well, to be honest, it sounds to me like it wasn't your fault. You've got Death Rewind, haven't you? I'm like, no, well, I disabled it. And she was like, yeah, well, you can turn it back on. And I was like, you know what? You're right. So when the game came around, I turned it back on and I brought Ryan back because I was like, because A, it threw me back in the game, but like I was able to use it. And I decided, you know what, I've said from the start, I want to live with my consequences, but I felt like I want to live with my consequences. I didn't necessarily feel like this one was mine. Yeah. Maybe it's cheap of me. You know, in the comments, if you want to brutally attack me, that's fine. But it's a decision I went with. I decided to keep Ryan in the game. I felt cheated that the game pop-up happened at this exact moment. I just felt a little frustrated. So yeah, I brought Ryan back in the game, and then I shot Chris. Really brutal death, the way like the silver just absolutely decapitates him. So I have Bobby KO'd next to me, and then yeah, I'm just there like Chris is just dead. Laura pops back into human form, and Travis never killed her because obviously I made them comply. They got on really well throughout the game. So then I guess it's just Ryan, Laura, and Travis kind of making a pact. I got a trophy at this point for Laura and Travis deciding to work together.
Yeah.
And Laura's just absolutely soaked in blood. She's like, right, come on, let's get me some clothes. And but there's a really interesting scene though where Travis kind of explains the story in the background, where Laura thinks it's all over, said and done, but then Travis is like, no, this isn't done. Chris wasn't the first one. It was Caleb. Caleb bit Kaylee and Chris. And then they're like, okay, so we got to kill Caleb. It's like, well, actually, then there's Silas. So it, Travis gives a little background as to who Silas is, a bit of, the gypsy curse and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it kind of moves on from the Eliza scene from there. But yeah, our scenes just worked out so brutally different there, mate.
They really did, and it was all of making one simple push of a button as well, like the exact as it happens. It's so bizarre, but of course, from here on in, it makes my playthrough feel even more vanilla because I didn't even have the segment that you get. Will obviously cover, or you'll cover in chapter 10 rather. So for me at this point, obviously it then goes back to Eliza, unless you've got anything else to add.
Nah, just to Eliza here for me as well.
So obviously we go to Eliza, and I'm pretty sure she has a pop at me, and she's saying, you had your chance to get rid of that family and you didn't, or something like that. Obviously Bobby and Jedediah are dead, and I was thinking, alright, Well, and Constance, I think, actually, and Travis.
And Travis,
all of them are dead, but Chris, she's having a pop at me. But you know what? Actually, think about it. She might not have had a pop at me. She might have been congratulating me. I can't remember. I've done that many playthroughs now. But of course, I suppose the main thing with this bit is the whole segment with the Hierophant tarot card that we both found. It gives a little bit of context as to why Eliza's got such a deep hatred of this Hackett family.
I love the way she flips as well, because we get this constant routine with her for 9 chapters. At least with Dr. Hill and Until Dawn, it started to kind of decay chapter by chapter. With Eliza, it was just so constant, wasn't it? And we get into chapter 9 and she's just still doing the same. Oh yeah, there's your tarot card. That's what it shows. Right, bye. Get out my trailer. Yeah. But now, you just show her this Hierophant card, and then she's like, where did you find it? And you're like, whoa. And it caught me really off guard, but I just loved the way they executed that.
Yeah, no, it was good. It was good to see a sudden change in tone from her. It was just something a bit different on the eye. So obviously this little cutscene plays out where you see the whole freak show's on fire, and she's absolutely devastated, thinking that Silas is dead. And of course there's a couple of explosions, and then there is actually a QTE, so you do actually get to play as Eliza here. And I think it's like some sort of beam that's coming to fall down on her. I mean, did you beat the QTE, mate?
I did, yes.
Yeah. So obviously she would have died by other means, be it the fire or something else. Of course, if you do fail the QTE, the beam just pierces right through her and then goes into the ground. So she's just sort of stood there and just sort of dies out. But I suppose it was good to get a little bit of context.
One thing I will say about this whole chapter 9 sequence is, I guess this fire explains why the tarot cards have blown all over the map, because you sort of see them flying.
Yeah.
Albeit they find their way in certain rooms and houses and attics and stuff. But, I get it's a video game, can't be too nitpicky. But the other thing I was going to mention is I quite like the fact that it gives you a bit of context to why Eliza's talking to you. And it gives you a bit of a moral dynamic for the end of the chapter, doesn't it? So obviously you find out she's Silas's mother, and you're going into this final chapter to kill Silas, especially for me, because that's what Laura and Travis discussed that they're going to do. And then the scene next to that, I get Eliza saying, no, don't kill Silas, he's an innocent boy. And it's just you walk into chapter 10, or especially I did, with this whole moral conundrum. And I'm sat there thinking, what's the right one to do? Do I kind of side with this lady? And she's just proper like making you guilt trip up. She's like, I've been helping you this whole time, haven't I? And you're like, oh my god, I mean, she has.
Yeah.
And then I've got these people who I've been like protecting and playing as for like 9 chapters, and you know, am I going to stop them from their end goal? And I quite like the fact that Eliza was thrown in as a spanner in the works to like make you question your whole end goal. Very different. I did not expect this was the kind of ending they do. But yeah, I don't know if you kind of got that dialogue from Eliza there as well, mate.
I don't know. I'm not sure if I did, because obviously in chapter 10 I won't be going to Silas. I think
Oh yeah, of course.
he might have said something like, "Oh, the cycle continues," or something like that. Yeah, I actually generally can't remember. I remember that the cutscene with the freak show, but not too much with what she said, because I don't think she would have said the same thing to me as she did to you.
Yeah, well, that's it, mate. So yeah, just you get like the bit of the moral conundrum as you walk into chapter 10. So I just thought it was really interesting they threw that in. Another side note that I've literally just thought about, because we're forced to look at the Hierophant card, I don't think you ever get to see what's in the Judgment card and the Sun card, do you?
Oh god, yeah. So you'd have what? So you'd have to purposely miss the Hierophant card in order to.
Yeah, potentially so.
Yeah, oh, how weird's that? I feel like they almost want you to get the Hierophant card because it's literally right by the stairs in that base.
Yeah, it's so easy to find, yeah.
It's like they want you to get it, so. But yeah, any more points, mate, or should we wrap up?
I'm happy to wrap it up. There's a lot more to say, but we're going to cover it all in the final episode of the Quarry. It feels so weird that we're coming to the end of this. But yeah, yeah, thank you very much for joining us, guys. Tell us in the comments what your decisions were, and if they were very different from ours. Jack and I got very different playthroughs here for Chapter 9, and we're eager to know what you guys had as well.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for listening, guys, and we'll see you in the finale, Chapter 10. Bye-bye.
Take care, guys.